Let's say we have 2 to the 5th power divided by 2 to the 3rd power. So we have division with the same base, but a different exponent. So how can we simplify this? Well, 2 to the 5th is 2 multiplied 5 times, and 2 to the 3rd is 2 multiplied 3 times. And we can split up this fraction into two parts. We can write it as 2 times 2 times 2 divided by 2 times 2 times 2, and that fraction is multiplied by 2 times 2 divided by 1. So if we multiplied these two fractions, we could get back to the step above, so we're just going backwards. And our first fraction we can split up into 2 over 2 times 2 over 2 times 2 over 2. And then we still have our 2 times 2 over 1 at the end. 2 divided by 2 is 1, so each of our fractions here simplifies to 1. And we're just left with 2 times 2 at the end, which we can write as 2 squared. So looking back at our first step, we had 2 multiplied 5 times, and then 2 multiplied 3 times, and we ended up canceling out 3 of these 2's. A shortcut for getting to the answer is to just subtract the exponents to see how many 2's are left over. So if we have 2 to the 5th divided by 2 to the 3rd, we can subtract those exponents. So we'll write it as 2 to the 5 minus 3. And 5 minus 3 is 2. So we have 5 2's, and we're dividing out 3 of them. So we're left with 2. And writing this as a shortcut, if we have some number to the m power divided by that same number to the n power, our answer is going to be that number to the m minus n power. So we're just subtracting the exponents. Let's say we have 3 to the 7th power divided by 3 to the 4th power. We have the same base, so we'll just subtract the exponents. So this will be 3 to the 7 minus 4 power, which simplifies to 3 to the 3rd. Let's have x squared divided by x to the 6th power. So before we use our shortcut, let's just break this down. So on top, we have x multiplied 2 times, and on bottom, we have x multiplied 6 times. Splitting this into two pieces, we have x times x divided by x times x multiplied by 1 over x multiplied 4 times. Our first fraction is going to simplify to 1, and we'll be left with 1 over x to the 4th power. And another way to write this would be x to the negative 4th power. So if we used our shortcut at the beginning, we would have gotten this answer. 2 minus 6 is negative 4. But what that means is as a fraction, our x's are going to be on the bottom. So you have to keep in mind which exponent is bigger. Since 6 is bigger than 2, we're going to have some leftover x's on the bottom. If it were the other way around, if we had x to the 6th divided by x squared, we'd have x's left over on top, so our answer would be x to the 4th. Let's look at a new shortcut. Let's say we have 2/3 to the 3rd power. We can write this as 2/3 multiplied 3 times. And with fractions, we multiply the pieces on top and the pieces on bottom. So on top, we'll get 2 multiplied 3 times, or 2 to the 3rd, and on bottom, we'll get 3 to the 3rd. So the shortcut here is that anytime you have a fraction raised to a power, you can rewrite it as the top number to that power divided by the bottom number to that power. So our shortcut here, if we have a fraction, smiley face divided by heart, and we raise that to the m power, we can rewrite it as smiley face to the m power divided by heart to the m power. Let's consider 5/6 squared. This would be 5/6 times 5/6, which we can write as 5 squared over 6 squared. And if we used our shortcut, we could have gone straight to that answer. Let's have x squared over y to the 4th, and we'll raise this to the 3rd power. Our shortcut tells us if we have a fraction raised to some power, we can rewrite it as the top part raised to that power divided by the bottom part raised to that power. And we learned in a previous video, if you have an exponent and we're raising that to another exponent, we just multiply those numbers. So we'd have x to the 2 times 3 power divided by y to the 4 times 3. And simplifying this, we would get x to the 6th power divided by y to the 12th power. Let's take a look at one more shortcut. Let's have 4x to the negative 2 power over x to the negative 3. We know how to rewrite negative exponents, so we can write x to the negative 2 as 1 over x to the 2. Similarly, x to the negative 3 we can rewrite as 1 over x to the 3. Now we have a piece on top and a piece on bottom, and our piece on bottom is a fraction. So we're dividing by a fraction. How do we do that? We multiply by the fraction flipped. So we'll have 4 times 1 over x squared, and then multiply by our fraction flipped. So we'll have x to the 3rd over 1. Now we're multiplying 3 numbers, and we can multiply in any order. Let's multiply these two so we can get our x's together. Those are both fractions, so we'll multiply the pieces on top and the pieces on bottom. On top, we have 1 times x to the 3rd, which is x to the 3rd. And on bottom, x squared times 1 is x squared. So this is where we see our shortcut. If you're multiplying by x to the negative 2 on top, it's going to find its way on the bottom and become positive. Similarly, if you have x to the negative 3rd on the bottom, it's going to find its way to the top and become positive. There's an easy way to remember this shortcut. You can think of negative exponents as sad. They're negative. And so you have to move them to the other side to become positive. So our x to the negative 2 had to go to the bottom to become happy, and our x to the negative 3 had to go to the top to become happy. Let's write out our shortcut. If we have some number to the negative m power over another number to the negative n power, we can rewrite this by making those negative exponents happy. We'll write this as heart to the n over smiley face to the m. So we move the sad exponents to make them happy. And our sad exponents are the negative exponents, and we make them positive. Let's practice this shortcut. We have x to the third divided by 2, and we're taking this fraction to the third power. And we're multiplying this by x to the negative 2 times y to the fourth over x times y to the negative sixth. So we're multiplying two separate pieces, so let's take them one at a time. In our first piece, we have a fraction raised to a power. We learned how to simplify this in the previous shortcut. We'll take the piece on top and raise that to the third power, and we'll take the piece on bottom and raise that to the third power. All right, on to our next piece. We see some negative exponents, so these are sad. X to the negative 2 is very sad, and y to the negative sixth is sad. So we'll need to move them to make them happy. We'll move our x to the negative 2 to the bottom, and our y to the negative sixth to the top. So we'll have y to the positive sixth on top times y to the fourth over x to the positive 2 times x. Going back to our first fraction, x to the third raised to the third power. We've learned a shortcut for that. We can write it as x to the 3 times 3. And 2 to the third power is 2 multiplied 3 times, which gives us 8. Going back to our second fraction, we have y to the sixth times y to the fourth. We can write that as y to the 6 plus 4 power. And on bottom, we have x squared times x. X by itself is the same as x to the first power. So on bottom, we're going to get x to the 2 plus 1 power. Looking back at our first fraction, 3 times 3 is 9. So we can write this as x to the 9th over 8. And our second fraction, 6 plus 4 is 10. So we have y to the 10th power divided by, and 2 plus 1 is 3. So we have x to the third power. Now each of our fractions is simplified, so we can multiply them together. Multiplying across, we get x to the 9th times y to the 10th divided by 8x to the third. Now we have some x's on top and some x's on bottom. Is there anything we can do with that? Well, we can actually rewrite this fraction, grouping our x's together. So we can write this as x to the 9th divided by x to the third times y to the 10th over 8. If we multiplied these two fractions, we would get back to the line above. We wrote it in this new way to see that we can simplify our x's. So x to the 9th divided by x to the third. We can use one of our shortcuts to write it as x to the 9 minus 3. And our second fraction, we can leave the same. Looking at our first fraction, 9 minus 3 is 6. So we have x to the 6th times y to the 10th over 8. Now we just need to multiply our two pieces together, and we can think of x to the 6th as x to the 6th divided by 1. And now we have two fractions that we can multiply across. So our final answer is going to be x to the 6th times y to the 10th divided by 8.